What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Sunbelt Syndicate. We are going to throw you an audible tonight, as we do in football. TJ had something come up kind of last minute. We're going to get Brandon Turner, former App State wide receiver, to join the show. Obviously, with him getting kind of a last-minute notification, he will be on here shortly. He has assured me of that. We will still run through the show as we usually would, even without TJ. And I told him if he has some time, he runs across, that he should certainly still jump on and join us and talk some Sunbelt football. So we'll see if that happens. This show is brought to you, as always, at least this season, brought to you by Don't Sleep Energy and by Phenom Elite. And they have a couple different places you can get their stuff. PhenomElite.com. They've got football, baseball. I think they've got basketball. They're branching out. And Don't Sleep Energy can be found on don'tsleepenergy.com or their Amazon shop, where you're going to be able to buy their stuff, including, actually, I have it right here, Don't Sleep Energy, or their little energy shot. So, just a little less if you don't want the full can to drink, but good stuff. It definitely works. What's up to Ben James saying what's up, and Wolves Wolves up as A-State plays Arkansas. I almost fumbled that there as we're talking about the football terms, but let's get to it here without further ado. This is going to be called the OGs going forward, just because TJ and I were the first two kind of to host one of these shows together. So we are going to call it that moving forward. And you can see Bo Sparks there in the preview thing. As far as the playbook goes, we are going to have this show segmented off better than we ever have before. So you kind of know what's coming when and which part of the shows that you actually may like the most. So Looking Good is going to be where we talk about the teams that have had a good week coming out from last week. We do offer the wrap, which is our wrap-up show weekly, where we will cover those a little bit more in depth. This is just kind of a quick touch to kind of refresh everybody before we talk about the previews for the upcoming week. Come on, bro. I feel like TJ that's one a good saying that he really uses quite a bit. So we're going to use that for that segment, where we got a team that either didn't perform or didn't look good enough. So come on, bro. It's kind of like, show me something more. We need to see something better from you, or, you just got thrashed or rattled pretty good in that last game. We're going to go over our weekly awards. For those of you who have been checking out sunbeltsyndicate.com, please continue to do so as we continue to try and build the site up even more. But the awards that we do are a little bit different from the conference awards. We will not always have the same players. I'm sure sometimes we will. But this week we had a little bit different, so we will go over those for those of you who maybe didn't see that just yet. Games of the week. Instead of just going over every single game all kind of the same for a long period of time, we're going to break it down for you. Which games should you focus on if you are an outsider maybe checking out the Sunbelt, or which games may matter the most for postseason or for conference standings as we get further into the season here. So games of the week, you better win. That is for the teams that kind of like to, come on, bro, we need you to win this game coming up this week, whether it's an FCS opponent or somebody that you should just throttle really easily. So the you better win is going to pick out those teams and show us what that's all about. Rounding it out is all of the games that kind of fall in between the games of the week and the you better win category. So hopefully we don't have too many of those too often. We definitely have a good amount of games of the week this week, and we have some ones that our teams better win. And last but not least, TJ's clip breakdown, which would usually start the show, and BT's going to try and take his place tonight. But obviously with him not being on the show just yet, we are going to wait to get to that until a little bit later. So back to this. Share your comments, questions, whatever you've got going on for tonight. And we will start to try and take a look at that. And it looks like BT is here. What's going on, BT?
Good evening. How's things going?
Good, man. How are you?
Oh, man, I can't complain. Doing pretty good today. Midway through the week. Obviously, coming off of the first week of college football and getting ready for somewhat of a lackluster week 2.
Yeah, well, it's going to be hard to follow up week 1, right? But we've got some matchups that could be a little bit interesting to us. So I'm not going to throw you right into the clips. I think there might be some ones that got out of whack a little bit too. So we'll see if I can get those queued up. So we'll start off real easy. We're going to look at the teams that were looking pretty good last week. So we've got, some NFL guys that are looking pretty good there in their suits. Our defensive player of the week there, Perkins McAllister. But let's take a look at those teams and talk about a little bit about what they did. We don't want to go too crazy because we kind of covered this in the wrap-up show, on Sunday night. But the first one there, BT, 45-10, JMU over Weber State. I guess expected, right?
Yeah, you kind of expect that. JMU was a pretty solid team in the sunbelt again this season, and the player, a lesser opponent, Weber State, will come out and put some work in this weekend at home. And I got to looking at some of the recaps of the game and read some of their write-ups. Man, they had the rushing attack got going. Petaway and Knight went for 188 of the 313 yards that they had. So that's a good start to a game. Their defense was lights out, only allowed 148 total yards, forced 3 interceptions, had 5 tackles for loss. Starting quarterback Barnett III got back in from returning from injury. So JMU looked real well to open up their season going 1-0 against Weber State.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely kind of expected there. I guess the thing that we talked about was Barnett getting the start was a little unexpected because we had heard he wasn't going to be ready for the start of the season. We didn't know when he was going to come back. And then as we got real close, we heard the practice jersey, or the injury jersey, I guess I should say, came off. And he was maybe looking a little bit closer to ready to play. Excuse me. He didn't go the whole game. But, 45-10, I guess you don't need to, right? So do you think they keep that in mind because of who they've got coming up this week with Louisville?
Yeah, I think they probably wanted to get him some action, get his feet wet, and then preserve him because it's a big time game coming up against Louisville this week. I think they have a chance. James Madison always plays group of 4 teams very well, and so going into Louisville this week, he's got to start. He got to start on his belt, got back accustomed to getting connected with his weapons, got the run game going. So I think they probably took that into consideration and probably not playing him the whole game. Looking forward to this week coming up at Louisville.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're saving him and, don't need to get him re-injured or aggravate something. So smart move there. Okay. I believe you were in the booth in Charlotte for this one.
Yep.
Right, BT?
Yep.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit.
One.
Nice. So you and Adam went on the radio call. Great job as always there. Certainly, I like how Adam shares out some video of you guys kind of celebrating and stuff on the calls after the game's over. But talk to us about what you saw in Charlotte. I think a lot of people came into this season as App State fans not knowing what to expect, I guess. But outside observer, obviously, I'm thinking, we look pretty good in the end, right?
Yeah. So going into the game, I had no idea what to expect. I kind of talked about it in our pregame show. It's a lot of unexpected. It's going to be some unpredictable times in Boone this year because you're not sure what you're going to get week after week because when you bring in 50-something newcomers, you got a brand new coaching staff, you really don't know what you're going to get. So Friday night in Charlotte, I was in the booth with Adam. I was on the play-by-play analyst, and we had a good time seeing the butt whooping unfold on UNC Charlotte. I give some people that are in the Charlotte region, that are UNC alumni and fans, a hard time because it's interesting. We were in that backyard, and that was a home game for us. And AJ Swan came out looking very well. Right now, I was joking with some guys the other day. He's the leading candidate for a Heisman winner since the person down in Texas didn't show up in the horseshoe. He went 31 for 46, went for 368 yards, 3 touchdowns. Could have had a fourth. We'll talk about a play later on where Barnes could probably had a fourth one. So it'd be a good. It was a good way to get him going. Because sometimes you want to get the run game going to get a quarterback comfortable in his first start. And they kind of mixed it up. They were, I think, in the first half they were a 2-1 run past the one ratio, and they ended up being a little bit more. And so when you get Barnes having 6 catches for 134 yards and a touchdown, Dominick ran the ball very well. I was impressed by watching him run the ball Friday night in Charlotte. And I got to looking at some stats. I don't believe he had a carry for a minus yard. I looked at some of the stats. He didn't have 0 negative yards. So that means he's running downhill, getting behind the offensive line that we didn't know what we were going to see. Bringing in new starters. You have only 1 holdover from last year. You get some new guys in the mix. Offensive line is the one that normally takes the most time to gel. And I think they did a very good job coming out. And then you flip over to that defensive side. DJ Smith had those guys out there playing hard. I got a text message from one of my former teammates, Joe Suter, during the game. He said, man, I like the way this defense looks the first game. These linebackers are running sideline to sideline. The secondary is playing very well. You got to think when your secondary is led by is your leading tacklers and you're doing something well. Zaire Gamble is probably going to be a full-time starter this year. He started last few games last year. You bring in McBurrow, who transferred in. He's going to be a weapon to have in the secondary as well. These guys both had 6 tackles apiece. McBurrow had the interception at the end of the first half that allowed out the set up for a field goal. So overall, man, App State they look very nice. It's to say what UNC Charlotte's going to be this year, but it doesn't matter for this week, for this game. App State went 1-0.
Yep. And also going 1-0, Texas State with a decisive 52-27 victory over Eastern Michigan. Sometimes those MAC teams early in the year can catch somebody off guard, but Bobcats have the biggest offensive line in all of college football as far as weight's concerned. So they did not struggle in this one. Quarterback Brad Jackson goes 18 of 26 for 214 and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions on the day. Lincoln Perry, 12 carries, 167 yards, 1 touchdown. But Bo Sparks, 7 receptions, 82 yards, an average of 11.7 per catch, and 4 touchdowns as well. So Brad Jackson and Bo Sparks were hooking up pretty good there. Any surprise there, or are you pretty confident that Texas State was going to get that one?
Pretty confident in Texas State with that one. You know, as you talk about some of these MAC teams early in the season, you never know what they can come out with. And when you take a sunbelt team against a MAC team or against like a Conference USA team, you're fighting for that conference supremacy. And so Texas State came out and did a great job. I think they scored 21 unanswered points to start the second half to kind of pull away from Eastern Michigan. And you just talked about Perry having 167 yards. The team had 392 rushing total. And it's interesting to look at the stats for Sparks. So he had 4 touchdowns. All of them really came in the red zone. They were for, I think, 16, 15, 5, and 2 yards. So, I mean, he wasn't taking the top off per se. He wasn't beating the world, but he was probably the favorite red zone target of Jackson as he got in the end zone 4 times.
And speak about that, BT. You were a wide receiver. It's actually maybe more difficult in the red zone. Is that what I hear? Because the space gets smaller for you to find your pockets?
Yeah, windows get tighter. Quarterbacks gets rushed a little bit, so it's a lot harder once you hit that red zone to get open unless you're a 6'5" guy. And they can throw it to you on the edge, and I'm not even touching 6 feet. I'm barely 5'10". So and a guy like me working the middle of the field, working speed outs, working something deep across the middle, you got to find those windows, and the quarterback's got to be on time because the linebackers and the secondary guys are going to be right there on you.
Nice. Makes sense. Arkansas State, another impressive victory, 42-24 over Southeast Missouri State. This is, again, not surprising, but they looked good in the victory. Jalen Rayner, if you watch Locked On with Schultze, looked pretty good in this one, and it was his argument that Rayner should have been the player of the week in that one. But regardless, a great start for the Red Wolves after last season's start. I don't know if you remember this, BT. They played Central Arkansas and really should have lost the first game of the season. They got a controversial touchdown pass or catch to go their way, and upon further review after the game was over, the officials did admit to a mistake that should not have allowed that to be a touchdown. Now, the game wouldn't have been over. They would have had another shot, so it's not to say they couldn't have done it again. But regardless, much better start this year. There's no doubt in a 42-24 victory Anybody that stood out to you, as much or
Yeah,
more than Jalen
Rainer,
Raynor?
like you say, Rainer could have got some votes for Player of the Week. He had completed 81% of his passes for 345 yards, 3 touchdowns. That was a big time statement by him coming out. And if you flip to the defensive side, they were led by the true freshman Nelson. He had 10 total tackles. I think 4 were solo. So as a true freshman coming in and getting your first action of the season, that means a lot. And then their offense scored 20 unanswered going into the half to kind of put them up and separate themselves over Southeast Missouri State. So hats off to Arkansas State, getting their first win of the season at home. Rainer 81% completion. That's a lot. That's doing very well. I don't care what level you at.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to touch on Artie Cat saying, "Hey y'all, what's up, Artie?" That is our resident Texas State fan, and as always, Mr. Ben James chiming in saying 10 different A-State players had receiving yards. So not only was Rainer pretty good on the day, he also spread it out through all his teammates out there, trying to get
football around
some receptions. Yeah. So ULM, that actually was the first game of the Sunbelt season. They won 20-0 over St. Francis. I don't really know if there's a ton to say about that one. It was kind of a late game. It was a rainy weather game. But, they looked pretty good. I think you probably take into the account that there wasn't many people in the stands because the weather was so poor. Obviously, a lot of stuff's wet out there, but I don't know if there's any specific thing, BT, that stuck out to you about the Warhawks as I properly rep tonight with the Adidas on for them.
I see you got the Warhawks on over there. What's the? I mean, you got to think about it, on a Friday night. The game probably was. Thursday night. The game was probably scheduled to start at 7, 8 o'clock, and you get a 2-hour rain delay. Just think of the momentum, the things that are going through, the emotions that are going through a player's mind, and then you got to sit in the locker room for over 2 hours to recalibrate your mind to go out and play a football game. So I give them a little bit of leeway considering some of those things. The quarterback didn't have really I think his last name is Armenta. Didn't have much of didn't have a real good game. He was 12 of 23 for 95 yards. They relied heavily on the run game with Braylon Reynolds getting 113 yards rushing. And I think you kind of touched on this before, and the players who look good, we talked about the secondary for App State leading the team in tackles, but ULM, their corner, Perkins McAllister, this is unheard of. They have 8 tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss. For a cornerback to have 2 sacks, that defensive coordinator, I'm going to assume that he's probably playing in the slot as a nickel corner versus being on the outside, unless they're running that corner cat, as we call it. So they did a very good job holding St. Francis, obviously, to a shutout. And I believe St. Francis only crossed the 50-yard line one time in that football game. So I know the defensive coordinator is very proud of the output that he got from his defensive guys.
No doubt about it. And maybe that's a good segue into who our defensive player of the week is. But we're not there yet because we've got Come On Bro next. BT, I was telling the people before you jumped on, I feel like this is a common TJ phrase. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. I mean, I think a lot of people say it, but it's definitely
if we played a drinking game with TJ saying, "Come on, bro," yeah, we're going to go through some bottles.
Yep. There we go. I like that. Yeah. So this is not to put anybody down, but it's just to be like, come on, let's see something better. Let's see something more. These are the ones that I've picked out here. Georgia Southern. Okay. Tight game. Pretty good at the half. They end up losing 42-14 to Fresno State. Now, not easy trip, right? Going all the way across the country out to California. But this was a team in Georgia Southern who was expected to compete at the top of the Sunbelt. And Fresno State, although, pretty good historically, I'm not sure if they were thought to be up at the top of the Mountain West this year. And then obviously week 1 didn't go so well for them. So to me, to get hammered like that, 42-14, that was a total shock. So come on, bro. I got to see something better.
Yeah, I caught a glimpse of this late and saw the score, and I was like, okay, they took a shellacking, as they say, 42-14. Fresno State ran the ball for 351 yards. That was kind of crazy. Yeah. And I think I looked at some of the second half totals because this game was kind of close going into halftime. And some of the second half totals. In the second half, they outgained Georgia Southern 316-75, and outscored them 29-0. So if you're getting outgained by almost 300 yards, at least 250, and you're not scoring any points in the second half, that's gonna be a long day. French had 158 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and interception. Georgia Southern only ran 49 plays in this entire game. So if you're going to run 49 plays, you got to be able to score some points out of those 49. And so 49 plays, 242 yards. The offense didn't show up in the second half, and the defense seems like they didn't either.
No, definitely not. The defense also didn't show up for Georgia State against Ole Miss. Now, I will say, I had to look this up because I knew Ole Miss's offense was very good. They were within the top 5, I think, last season. They might have been 6. Can't remember off the top of my head. But either way, one of the tops in the country in offense. Obviously, a ranked team. I failed to put that on this graphic specifically, but they looked to be number 21 when this game happened. So it wasn't a surprise that they took it to Georgia State. But to me, it's still a come on, bro, because I want to see at least a little bit more offense from the Panthers. At least be a little bit more competitive. Having Ole Miss score 63 on you isn't good, but they do that to some other good quality teams. So, okay, that's fine. And then I want to see your offensive firepower show up. You beat Vandy last year. Show me something against Ole Miss as well. It just didn't happen. It wasn't clicking. It wasn't working. And yeah, just gotta show us a little bit more on the offensive side, right, PT?
Yeah, that's a little. Georgia State, they're a hot and cold team. Ever since I've gotten on the radio and I've been following the sunbelt a little bit closer, Georgia State, they're going to be hot and cold. And this right here is not a good showing for their program to start week 1, going down to Ole Miss and getting beat 63-7, because it looked worse than probably what it was. Ole Miss didn't let up. They outscored them 30. They outscored them 38-0 in the second half. And so that's not a good look for your team to going down there. And they had almost 700 yards of total offense. That's tough. They threw for 400, ran for 295, averaged 8.6 yards a play, compared to Georgia State only averaging 4.3. And it's pretty unheard of in a college football game where you only have 69 passing yards and you're supposed to be a pretty good passing team. Georgia State struggled to get the ball going. Penalties, they had almost 8 penalties for 67 yards. So not a good start for the Georgia State Panthers as they went down to Ole Miss this past weekend and this Saturday and got it put on them. So hopefully they'll bounce back. That's not a good look. Obviously, these first 2 teams we're talking about isn't a good look for the sunbelt to go along with the team down in Conway, South Carolina, not close to the beach, Conway. And so it's not a good look when you go to these. You go to an SEC team, you go to a ACC team. I think Fresno's in the Mountain West. And so you go out here and you want to represent for the Sun Belt, and you go out and put up these 3 type of performances. So they struggled. The starting quarterbacks for Georgia State, Brown was 8 of 14 for 17 yards, eight completions for 17 yards. That's not that. I'm not a math major, but that's barely 2. That's barely 2 yards a completion. And then Villanova, I think his last name was 4 of 11 for 52 yards. So that's a little bit better. But Georgia State took that trip down to Ole Miss and didn't show up. So 63-7 is a bad look for Georgia State in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, that last name is Canadian. It's Veyer, unbelievably, okay. Right? I don't know how you get that out of that, but that's what I learned last year after I butchered it a few times and heard somebody on TV say it. And I said, okay, I would not have gotten that had I not heard somebody else say it.
I'm the guy. Adam Witten would tell you I'm the guy who will screw up a kid's name. There was a quarterback a couple years ago at Wyoming. I butchered his name so bad, and they still give me a hard time about it. But yeah, so hey, I let Adam do the pronunciations, and I just analyze the game.
There you go. Hey, call out their number. Most people kind of know who those people
there you
are.
Go. That's what I do.
I don't know. Actually, with the transfer portal anymore, I don't know how much people do know that. But, a couple games in, they're going to get used to it. All right, another bad loss, as you kind of mentioned. Conway, Chanticleers traveled up to Virginia and just got railed 48-7. I mean, I thought Coastal would struggle in this one. They played Virginia last year and lost at home, so I didn't necessarily think Coastal was going to go up here and win. And I thought they would at least be more competitive. So that's where the come on, bro comes from. You lost 48-7. You were 1 of 14 on third downs. That's not even close to good enough. MJ Moore's coming in, his third, I think it's third school in 3 years. So you wanted to see, a little bit something more, a little bit something exciting. Because you had Ethan Vasco, you previously had McCall there, mobile, fun to watch. I didn't quite see that with Morris just yet.
Yeah, Morris, like I say, he's 20 or 36 for 160 yards. And his leading receiver only had 2 catches. So he must have spread the ball around a good bit. But you got to find some continuity. I think they ran the ball with 7 different rushers. They had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Goodness gracious. They got at least, it looks like they had at least 10 guys catch a pass. With Washington having 3 for 33 and Wright having 4 for 32. Josh had 2 for 20. So you got all these guys you're trying to spread the ball around to. He's got to find a target and rely on him a lot more often. Because when you look at the total yards, Virginia outscored them 35-0. They scored 35 unanswered points before Coastal responded in the third quarter. And it just wasn't a good day for the Chanticleers out of Conway. 163 passing with 91 rushing yards. They only average 3.8 yards per play. Like you said, 1 for 14 on third down. I'd be very interested to break that if I had a breakdown of what was the distances on those third downs. It's third and short,
right,
third and medium, third and long. Because when you go 1 for 14 and you punt the ball 8 times, you lose 2 fumbles, you throw an interception, commit 7 penalties, it's going to be a long day for you in Charlottesville.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, last one to wrap up the come on, bro. The Cajuns losing to Rice at home as they open up a newly renovated stadium. A lot of excitement going into that one. A lot of expectation that the Cajuns could be one of the very few teams from this conference that could compete for a CFP spot. I think it's all but gone at this point already, right?
Yeah, didn't show up or didn't have the best performance against Rice this weekend. Obviously, losing 14-12. Walker Howard was 10 of 22 for 88 yards. That's not going to cut it. You got to have more than 80. We just talked about the Georgia State quarterback getting 68 yards, something like that passing. But when Howard only has 88 yards passing, he sacked 3 times, but he did run the ball very well with his legs. Used his legs, 9 carries for 47 yards and a touchdown. The offense did get going. And one interesting stat that I found is they did not get in the red zone one time during this game. So if you're not going to get in the red zone, you're definitely. We just talked about Sparks from Texas State catching 4 touchdowns in the red zone. You got to get in the red. You got to get in the red zone to give yourself a chance. And then when you get in the red zone, you got to make something happen. They had no red zone opportunities, so they didn't give themselves a chance against Rice as they open up their new stadium down in Cajun country.
Yeah, Walker Howard, 10 of 22, just averaged 4 yards per pass. So like you said earlier, that's not good. No touchdowns, 1 interception. Ends up getting banged up towards the end of the game. Daniel Beal comes in, goes 0 for 6, and on the 4th down play to try and keep the game alive, really nowhere near anyone. So I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. My hope is that we see Lunch Winfield. I've been clamoring about this kid for a couple years. I want to see it. When I say, come on, bro, this guy's a true dual-threat quarterback. I've had a lot of excitement from stuff I've heard about how he plays the game, and then he's just getting ready for having his opportunity to explode. It sounds like the teammates are on his side. I'd like to see Lunch get a shot here for the Cajuns and spark this offense because that's what was missing this past week. So they're going to have to do something there. Neil asking us if Taylor Lamb, former App State QB, still with UVA. To my knowledge, he is still with UVA, BT. I'm not sure if you know offhand if he's still there or not, but I think I've looked at it and seems like
I believe he is. I'm looking him up now.
Yeah.
Let's
okay.
See. Yep. Looks like he's still the quarterback coach.
Quarterbacks coach. Okay. So yeah. So we're going to talk about a lot of former Sunbelt people coming up here in a minute. But let's get to the awards. Offensive Player of the Week, as chosen by us, the Sunbelt Syndicate. That's going to be Bo Sparks. If you think about why he had it, yeah, you could have chosen who the conference went with. You could have chosen Jalen Rayner. But bottom line is this 4-touchdown performance ties the single season record for most touchdowns in the land after a single game in conference history. But it also ties the most touchdowns in the country after week 1. So this kid is tied with some of the other best receivers in the country after week 1 for touchdown receptions. BT, as you said, they didn't go for huge chunks of yards. But when you have a reliable wide receiver down towards the red zone, I think that's just as valuable, right?
Yeah. When you got a target in the red zone that you can find, I'm sure the offensive coordinator had it dialed in and had it plays designed to get Sparks the ball. Like I said, he had a catch for 16 yards, had a catch for 15, a touchdown catch for 5, and a catch I think it was for 3. They design plays to get in the football, and that's what you're supposed to do as an offensive coordinator. Design plays to put the ball in the hands of your playmakers, let them go make plays. And he did that against he did that this week.
Eastern Michigan.
Eastern Michigan, yep. So they did this week against Eastern Michigan.
And just the last little note we added on this, he did all of that in just 3 quarters. He didn't even play towards the end of the game because of the lead. So yeah, that's even makes it even more impressive. So a great note by our writer TJ O'Sullivan at that point, who also happens to be our head editor for the website as well. But those are great finds about why his performance sticks out a little bit more than some of the others. Defensive Player of the Week, we already kind of spoke about him. Darko Parkins McAllister, as you said, 8 total tackles, 5 of them solo, 2 sacks, and that total tackle mark led the team on top of the team itself getting the shutout. So an absolutely impressive performance. And again, like you said, 2 sacks as a cornerback is pretty unheard of, right? I mean, do you specifically remember any games that you played where your teammates were grabbing sacks as corners?
Nah, I don't recall. Because you normally only will play a corner. A corner's only going to be going after the quarterback. If you got a corner cat where the formation's into the boundary, the short side, and you bring them off the short side, or nowadays most teams play a 4-2-5 look or a little 3-3-5 look, and they have that nickel corner playing over the slot. So he's probably disguised a couple of man coverages and came off the edge once the linemen declared their blocks. And he was able to get to the quarterback. So hats off to Perkins McAllister having an outstanding week for 8 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have a kind of a double winner on the first week of the season here. Special teams and freshman of the week goes to App State's Dominick DeFreitas. What an impressive first outing, right? I mean, didn't miss anything. 1 of 1 field goal wise with how long was that? 47 yards and perfect on extra point attempt. Oh, it's 2 of 2?
It was 2 of 2. They kicked 2 field goals, and it was 4 for 4 on extra points. I think he kicked 2 field goals, and my memory serves me correct.
You're right. I was actually reading his little write-up here actually mentions the Texas State kicker who had a shot because he was 1 for 1 field goal, 7 on the extra points. So he had a little bit more in that regard, but he didn't have as many field goals, I guess is probably what tipped the scales here.
Yeah, so he was obviously I think to get App State on the board after the first touchdown, he kicked a field goal. And Adam had said, he's a freshman coming in. He had been having a good fall camp. And he came in and they said he had a pretty good, strong, and accurate leg. And so Coach Dal Loggins gave him an opportunity to kick 2 field goals. Well, I didn't give him an opportunity, but although he was given 2 opportunities to kick a field goal. Obviously, App scored 4 times. He got the 4 PATs. So hats off to Dominick for his efforts in week 1, and look forward to what he does the remainder of this season, and just being a freshman, what he does the rest of his career.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so you want to try these clips here that I think I've pulled. I think yep. I might have them prepared and ready. This is I gave TJ a little shout out here. He's game against LSU. He's running past the Richmond defender, the Michigan background victory. I got him all set up, and then he doesn't show up for the first time.
In that LSU clip, he's probably going to block the safety because he don't like he was trying to catch no pass. In this
Oh man.
Richmond, they probably gave him a little jet sweep to try to get in the ball early. So that's just how they do the short ball guys when they're trying to get in the football quick.
Oh, I love it.
That's
I
my
love
buddy.
it. All right. So the first one comes from App State Charlotte. You saw this game. You called it from the stadium itself. But, kind of walk us through what happens here as a wide receiver. You have experience here, so this is something that you can speak to a little bit better than the rest of us. So, just kind of tell us what you see here.
Yep. So right here you see Barnes is the number one. Barnes is the guy that's in the slot on the ball. And he's going to do is he's running a deep over. Strowman's the receiver at the bottom, and he's going to run a bench route. He's running in to try to occupy that safety in the corner on his deep out. And so Swan's looking to try to throw this deep crossing route, and he sees, as you see it, Strowman's the guy that's on the out at the bottom. It's occupying the safety in the corner. So Barnes runs his deep over. He has the defender beat, but he judges the ball, comes back and makes a great catch. And now as he's going into the end zone, he doesn't realize that this other safety has come to be a part of the play. It happens. I heard the coach's comments about, make sure you finish through and things of that nature. But as a receiver in your mind, when you catch a pass like that, you're not looking, you got the one defender that's on you that you got to beat. You called it, he fell. You don't necessarily, your mind doesn't ready to process, hey, I got this other defender that's coming. So you got a free release off the line, which also helped. And the young man's fast. He's not that tall, so going up and catching that makes a heck of a play. But 6 makes a bigger play by coming in and finishing. Like you always talk about, you finish through the whistle, and he does, and he knocks the ball out of Barnes' hands right before he crossed the goal line for a touchback. And Coach Loggins isn't so happy that there was not an angle within the broadcast or in the stadium that had anything down the line, down the end line. So you really can't see where the ball is at, or if it even breaks the plane within control. So you get a touchback right here, takes 6 points off the board, and UNC Charlotte gets the ball at the 20-yard line.
Yeah.
But some of the things to discuss on that play, offensive line did a great job protecting Swan. On the tight end, I think that was Hamlet was in Chip before he went out to the flats. Dominick checks the linebackers before he goes out into the flats. Barnes gets a free release on the deep crosser. Strowman's running the deep bench route coming to Charlotte's sideline. And Swan throws it up and gives this guy a chance to make a play on it. Barnes does, he just doesn't finish through the end zone.
Agreed there. It's a great job of breaking that down. Again, we didn't even give you much of a chance to preview that, so it's even better there. This one, Georgia Southern at Fresno State. We talked about this one not being great, but this is a great play. You'll see the play action, and then I'll let you, kind of take it over from there. I'll run it through first time full speed, and then I'll slow it down to that second time so we can see it again.
Sounds good. So if you look at this from the start, it's almost kind of the same formation App State came out with for their touchdown, but they motion the number one receiver over. And so what happens right here?
Brown.
Okay. So what happens right here is as you keep playing, you kind of see you'll see another angle that they play. This safety that's down, the safety's come down on its hash mark. And so you got one high safety really. And from the looks of it, looks like you're going to be you're in the zone coverage because nobody comes over with 19. And so Brown is outside the hash, and he just basically runs a slot fade, try to get away from the safety. Number 3 is occupied by this by this quick out. So it's one-on-one with the corner, with the number 2 receiver and the safety. And what I believe is this safety that's chasing right here, he doesn't get across the field in time. Because if they were in a cover 2, that he's that half safety, because number 22 right here is the hook flat player. 22's got to do a better job of getting his hands on the receiver, so he doesn't have a free release. And you would probably like to see him force him inside, so he's forcing him to his help versus forcing him outside where he's away from the safety. and you see the safety doesn't get over there in time, and French puts the ball on him. He makes a good catch, keeps 2 feet in bounds, touchdown Southern.
Yep. I like that play there. I like how he comes across here. 3 is already like, trying to see if the play is going to read differently. And I think at that point, the communication's lost, right? Is that kind of like what happens in that breakdown there, but they now don't know exactly who's taking who kind of thing?
Yep. Look, that's what it looks like, because when that safety comes down, you could tell their zone. If they're cover 3, the safety's if they're cover 3, number 3's got to be deep. And so that could have been an issue as well. So if it's cover 2, it's 17's. It looks like it's going to be 17's mistake by not getting over. If it's cover 3, it looks like it's going to be number 3's responsibility to get deep. But looking at the rest of the defense, it looked like they were in a cover 2 defense, because the top side corner, he plays the half field and leaving the guy in the linebacker up to play the flats. And that's why you saw that safety rotate down. So when that safety rotates down, the other one's got to rotate over top of him, and he doesn't get over top to help his guy out.
Gotcha. All right, so games of the week, Louisville and James Madison have matched up recently, so this isn't one that's totally brand new. So let's just jump right into them, starting off Friday night with the Louisville Cardinals playing host to James Madison. This one on ESPN2. Again, Friday, 7 Eastern, 6 Central. It's going to be prime time for a lot of people to be tuning into. A great chance for the sunbelt to make a big name for itself. And you said you think James Madison's got a chance in this one, right?
Yeah, man. Because I like what James Madison does. They're gonna play tough physical football, and what you have to realize, you obviously have a returner coming back over at James Madison. You got a pretty good run game with Petway and Knight. Their defense is real solid. Louisville comes in with a new quarterback who just got his first Louisville win. Miller Moss, who was at Southern Cal, he just not came in. I did throw 2 interceptions last week, but so James Madison is going to come in and not be afraid of Louisville. They've stepped up to the plate every time they played a group of 4 team, or a highly ranked team, or a notable team, as you want to call it. They're going to come ready to play because they know this is their opportunity to show up for the Sunbelt again, to show up for James Madison again. And because if I'm not mistaken, it was last year, 2 years ago, they upset North Carolina. I think
just last season.
Yep. Last season, okay. So they're not afraid, and now they're not afraid of the ACC per se, because they've already taken out one of the ACC. They've been the ACC team before. Obviously, Louisville and North Carolina, they may not be on the same level, but they're not skip level. They're just one above or one below each other. And so it'd be interesting to see how James Madison goes to Louisville on Friday night, shows up. They're going to bring their A game. I know Louisville's going to not take them lightly, because they understand the significance and the prestige that James Madison brings. And it'll be good to see what Miller Moss could do against another opponent. Against East Kentucky, he played fairly well, but did throw 2 interceptions. He did throw 2 interceptions. And so you'll be interested to see what James Madison comes up with to throw him off his game, and how they get their run game going.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to note that Isaac Brown is really their number one running back. Sorry, just 6 carries, but he had 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's a 21-yard average. I'm sure that has to do with the opponent, but it does bear to mention because he had 5 100-plus games last season, and he's the first ever true freshman at Louisville to eclipse 1,000 yards in a season. So that is a name you need to know for sure when you're the James Madison defense. I'm sure they're well aware. We're just making the fans aware. And if you remember the name Colin Lacey, the former South Alabama Jaguar, is a top target for Moss. Grabbed 4 catches for 62 yards last week. Chris Bell is the only returner from an otherwise depleted wide receiver room, but they're not without talent. So, Moss can throw it to these guys. They can hurt you there. One more guy that you should know. On the defensive side, former Sunbelt player in Clev Lubin from Coastal Carolina helps plug up the middle. The defensive lineman had 4 total tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss versus the Colonels. Again, it's a competition difference, but his name is there in the stat book, making it, noticeable for highlighting purposes.
Yep.
So some former Sunbelt guys that helped bring this whole thing into loop. I love the fact that some people think, Sunbelt's not the premier group of 5 and they've never reached a college football playoff. Like, yeah, because our really good players are that damn good that they're getting taken by bigger programs. So, yeah, if we could keep our guys, the Sunbelt would be the premier group of 5. But it's hard when they're really good to keep them around, right? Oh, did we freeze, BT? Might be frozen there. We'll have to see. In the meantime, I think that was all the notes I had on that. The linebacking core is a strength of the Cardinals as well. TJ Quinn helps lead them there. Team only allowed 150 total yards to the Colonels as well and kept them under 2 yards per carry. So defensively, very sound for the Cardinals. JMU will have to play mistake-free football if they want to be in this game, quite frankly. I think they can as well. We saw what they can do against, a team like UNC, as BT was talking about from the same conference. I don't think, like he doesn't, that they're on the exact same level, but they're not light years difference. So if they play a little off their game and JMU plays their game, I think we absolutely could be in for a great one on Friday night. Okay, Texas State versus UTSA. A lot of us on the East don't understand the significance of this game. This one's an ESPN Plus game on Saturday at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central Time. Coach DJ Kenny was at the podium on his press conference on Monday saying that he doesn't understand why this game isn't elevated to ESPN or ESPN2 because it is just so significant, especially for that Texas area. So hopefully, they could put on a show no matter where they're at. We know that most of us and Sunbelt fans in general will be tuning into that one. BT, I just started into the Texas State UTSA, so you missed hardly anything here. But yeah, Owen McCown threw for just 121 yards and no touchdowns. So not overly impressive there in that game because they played number 19 Texas A&M. So, yeah, his stats aren't going to jump off the page. We only have 1 week to go off of. Obviously, he's got past history, but I'm judging it off more of this year. Their strong point definitely seems to be their running game, though, where running back Robert Henry Jr. gained 177 yards on 16 carries and 2 touchdowns. So that was also against that same Texas A&M defense that kept the quarterback in check. They let up some yards because of the talent at the running back position. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. David Amador II is their top receiving threat, but they do have a deep wide receiver and tight end room. So if McCown can get going through the air and they've got the running back game going, Texas State is going to have another performance like last week, right, PT?
Yeah, I think everybody can't go into Texas College Station and upset them like the Mountaineers did a couple years ago. So UTSA had their work cut out for them. But they're going to have this is going to be a good challenge for UTSA and Texas State this week. Texas State was on a roll. They put up big numbers. They put up big numbers this past week, 52 against Eastern Michigan. I highly doubt that Sparks is going to have 4 touchdowns because they did. The defensive coordinator for UTSA didn't watch film. And so you got to be able to, as a defensive coordinator for UTSA, you got to be able to take away Sparks and make Jackson find other weapons. But you also got to remember, Texas State ran for almost 400 yards. And so it's a different level of competition. Let's see what the run-pass game ratio looks like. And see what happens down in San Antonio Saturday as the Bobcats go to visit.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I know this is the next one. Ben James is huge on this one as the A-State fan for us. Natural State Showdown is expected to be a sellout with 50,000 in attendance, and it will be at War Memorial Stadium in Little Rock. Also expected to be the last ever game Arkansas plays in that stadium. So this one means a lot. That also means a lot because Arkansas has never, ever played A-State in football before. Same state, never played each other. BT, I don't know how many, did you get to play Wake or anything when you were at App?
We played my freshman year, my true freshman year, but I was redshirting, and I don't think we played any other. We didn't play any other in-state teams that were, I would say group of five that were bowl eligible at that time. We obviously played Western Carolina because they were in our conference. But we never played anybody that's interested because we played Wake Forest, I believe it was in 2001, and then they played NC State in I want to say 2007. Oh yeah, 06, 07 they played them. So that was the only team we played my freshman year, and then the year after I left, we got to play another in-state. But that's interesting that two in-state teams like this have never played. But now you got to think with how parity in college football is and how other things are going. You got to play some of these in-state teams because we use it at App. We use it as a recruiting tool. App State plays Charlotte. They play ECU. State won't play us. I guess we get Wake Forest on the schedule one day. So you got to think about these teams that are in state. Obviously, we played Carolina the last 3 out of the last 4 years, I believe, something like that. I know. So playing these in-state teams, it helps your recruiting, and it also helps you, your bragging rights per se. But hearing that this is the first time Arkansas State, Arkansas playing and to close out Little Rock Memorial War Memorial Stadium down in Little Rock is very interesting. So, like someone says, it'll be a greatest day in football in Arkansas.
Yeah, I think it could be, especially if A-State wins it for Red Wolves fans, of course. But Arkansas is no joke. I know that they've had their struggles over the year. They're not necessarily expected to finish towards the top of the SEC, but Razorbacks down to Alabama A&M last week, 52-7. Now, that's not anything to get excited about. Alabama A&M is not really the greatest of talents, we know. But quarterback Taylon Green threw for 322 yards and 6 touchdowns. The running game also very strong with Mike Washington Jr., but Green himself will also pull it and get large chunks of yards because he is a true dual threat quarterback there. So something just kind of like Jalen Rayner on the other side. Go ahead, BT.
Yeah, so I was just looking at some of the notes and talking and looking at how Arkansas did. Man, you don't want to down Alabama and A&M, but this is going to be a stiffer competition because Arkansas State, they're a pretty solid team. And let's see what Rayner can do against SEC defense. See if Nelson on the defense side of the ball can show up to shut down the run game and help control the passing game. So, like you say, interesting matchup coming here Saturday down in Little Rock.
Yeah. Also, I got to mention this wide receiver Omega Blake. It's O''Mega. Yep. That's an awesome name. So, first of all, shout out for that. But Omega Blake had a game, 7 receptions for 121 yards, 1 touchdown. And Green also spread the ball out, just like we saw earlier with Rayner spreading it out to 10 receivers. So did Green. So these teams both are going to spread this ball out in the air, and it's going to be all over the field all day long. It's going to be a really exciting game if they can keep it close and competitive, because this is going to have some juice. I'm sure the juice is going to be more on the Red Wolves side than the Razorbacks. But I think there's going to be people from both sides that are still excited to finally see this game happen. So it's easily one of the top games. Again, and you could say kind of similar things with Texas State, UTSA, JMU, and Louisville for obvious reasons with the sunbelt aspects and everything. Yeah, they just don't have the history kind of behind them like these other two matchups. But this last matchup here at the bottom may be one of the most interesting as Tulane and South Alabama matchup. This one's really got quite a bit of history behind it, and this one's going to be one of the nightcaps on Saturday. It's not starting until 7 Eastern, 6 Central time. Tulane hosted Power 4 and Big Ten member Northwestern at home last week. That's what you can do when you're a private school with a lot more money, right, BT?
Yep. Hey, something interesting I learned today is Tulane wanted to wear white jerseys at home. Yep. Northwest, I think they were doing it to honor Hurricane Katrina or something, a semblance of that. Yeah. Northwestern said, no, we're not allowed. You can't do that. And so Tulane did what you do to somebody who comes in your house and says you can't do something. You put belt to behind. And that's exactly what they did. They have that new transfer quarterback that came in from BYU. Had a real good. Jake Retzlaff had a real good game. And so Tulane came to play. They're always one of those. They're always one of the group of 5 teams that's looking to get ranked, looking to try to get that one of those college football playoff spots, being one of the highest ranked non-Power 5 schools, however that goes. So it was interesting to do that. And I see in your notes it's a App State connection down there, as former D-lineman Santana Hopper had 3 tackles in his Tulane debut, 1 sack and 1 tackle for loss. So the defense played very well last weekend as they get ready to go up against the tough South Alabama squad this week.
Yeah, Ketchell Bullock, Bishop Davenport have their work cut out for them. That Northwestern offense was kept to just 76 total rushing yards on the day. Tulane did win that game 23-3. Like you said, when you come into someone's house and they ask you a favor to just wear a jersey for remembrance purposes and you say no, I've actually heard the Northwestern coach said he called to apologize to Summerall, said they meant no disrespect by it, but he gave no good reason why he didn't agree for that jersey change to happen. So to me, that's still disrespectful. It's a simple ask. You're playing at their stadium. It's not an advantage they're trying to gain because, the heat or something like that. It's a simple thing that means something to them, and you didn't let it happen. And when you called to apologize, you didn't say, sorry, we didn't let you wear it. We didn't understand the significance. Apparently, they knew damn well what the significance was and still didn't allow them to do it. So I'm not sure why you even call to apologize when you're not really apologizing. So
yeah,
very, very weird situation.
Could have kept that phone call, as they say.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. I don't know what Summerall's response was. That he didn't really get into that, but he tried to sell us on the fact that it's not disrespectful. It wasn't meant to be disrespectful. Well, I don't think the apology was any better, but we'll see. All right, having a little fun with this one. You better win. So some good things from either social media or movies here. When do it, or it's CHIT Chit from TikTok says it's like an office thing. He says, "Do it, lady." So it's a little fun thing. Just get it done. Get the win you need to get. Here are the teams that need to have that happen. App State firing on all cylinders last week down in Charlotte, essentially a home game, but this is their first official home game. BT, I'm sure you'll be there calling this one. What can you tell us about Lindenwood? What threat they may pose, if any, to App State this weekend?
None. In the discussion. They lost to I believe they lost to a lesser opponent last week. And so you hear a lot of talk about between game 1 and game 2 is where a lot of teams make vast changes or make a big jump. And so App State should make a major jump after playing Charlotte last week and now playing Lindenwood this week as they open up the Rock for a 3:30 kickoff. Against this team who didn't show up a little bit last week. They struggled a little bit. App State just can't play down the competition. And I'm sure that Coach Loggins is going to talk to these guys about that. You want to go out here and you want to do what Ole Miss did to Georgia State. You want to make it plain, clear, and simple from the get-go that we're not here to play around. We're not letting you stay around, and we're going to send you out of town with the L headed back to Missouri.
Yeah, that's the one thing. For those that don't know who or where Lindenwood it is located in the state of Missouri. They did lose 13-35 to St. Thomas, Minnesota, who's not terrible. They're not a bad team. I think they moved, if I'm not mistaken, up from the D2 level to the D1 AA FCS level there. Quarterback Nate Glantz threw for over 300 yards, and running back Steve Hall averaged 5 yards per carry, but only had 70 yards total. Wide receiver Drew Corbath may be the biggest weapon, holding 5 receptions for 128 yards, but somehow didn't find the end zone. So we'll have to see if they can do anything more against this App State defense. But I'm like you, DT. I just don't see it happening. I don't know. Jackson State versus Southern Miss. We know what happened last week with Southern Miss. We obviously want to see them rebound and play a little bit better here against Jackson State. Let's see if I can find my notes here on this one. I'm scrolling right by him somewhere here. But there we go. Jackson State, not to be confused with Jacksonville State, right? Jackson State is where Coach Dion came from. Jacksonville State is also, well, it's really not that far away, but not the same team. So don't get confused there. This is coming off a 28-14 win over Hampton. They are. It also marks their 11th straight victory. So as much as you want to say a different level of competition, Southern Miss should win this game easily. Just be careful a little bit. This team is rolling, and I don't know how much you want to put on last season because obviously 10 of those came from last season and only one of them came from this season so far. But Jacobian Morgan seems like a pretty serviceable quarterback. Strength certainly still seems to be on the ground. Morgan only threw for 143 yards, ran for 42, averaged 6 per carry. Lead running back Ahmad Miller went 172 for 2 touchdowns. So I think the ground game for Southern Miss is really going to have to be sharp here in this game before they realize too late that someone's going to be running all over them, right?
Yeah, Southern Miss, they're going to use Braylon Braxton as the dual threat that he is. Last week he had almost 200 yards passing, close to 50, 60 yards rushing. So he touched the ball almost 30 times, over 30 times, 38 times he had the ball in his hand last week. So you're going to see what you got out of him from Marshall last year. He's a major threat. And so you got to make sure as your Southern Miss that you go in and you get your offense started early. You don't take Jackson State lightly. You get the run game going with Jeffrey Pittman. And if Braylon Braxton can find his receivers out on the end, Carl Chester or Jeffrey Pittman, get these guys the ball, let them make some plays, and hopefully you can come out of this week 1-0 against a Jackson State team who just beat Hampton last week.
Yeah, they did have 3 turnovers versus the Pirates on defense. So again, don't make the simple mistakes. Play your game, like you said, BT. Get that ball into guys' hands in the open field. And let your athletes out-athlete them if you can, because kind of you should see maybe the reverse of what happened to Southern Miss last week, I'd say. Yeah. All right, Missouri State versus Marshall, Saturday, 6 Eastern, 5 Central. The Bears are making their first appearance this season in FBS football. They got welcomed to the FBS by none other than the USC Trojans of Southern Cal, 13-73. It's hard to judge this Bears team, right? The Bears didn't have much success anywhere against that team. Quarterback Jacob Clark threw for 147, 1 touchdown, did have 2 interceptions, though. Top running back Shamari Lawrence had 12 carries for 50 yards, and the leading receiver Tristan Gardner had only 2 catches for 39 yards, but did somehow find the end zone, BT. I mean, first year in FBS football doesn't bode well to play even a team like Marshall who struggled with Georgia last week, right?
Yeah, you were just outmatched. It's just plain and simple. USC athletes were better, and they showed up and they like you say they showed up and showed out all over them. And so you got to understand that if you're Missouri State, all right, this is another week for you to try to get better. Well, another week for you to get better. You're playing an opponent that's kind of on your level, with Marshall being in the sunbelt and them jumping up to the FBS. And so you're going to see what your athletes look at. It's kind of a measuring stick for you as you come into the FBS to get a good look at your team against a Marshall team who, like you say, they struggled last week against Georgia. Both of these teams played top-tier programs and got beat. That's just kind of what happened. That's what they went through. Marshall went through. They used 3 quarterbacks last week. Zion Turner threw for 100 yards. You had your rushing attack was very limited. Justin Williams.
Any
Thomas,
relation, by the way?
Nah, I don't know that kid.
Okay.
So Justin Williams Thomas, he carried the ball 4 times. Had 24 yards. Deshaun Barbie had 7 carries for 15. So your offense didn't really get going for the most part. And so you got to make sure that you can we don't know what actually Marshall's going to look like this, to be honest. They've got a lot of new guys. They got a new coaching staff there after the mass departure.
Who's above them?
What's that?
to the team above them on this graphic in Southern Miss.
Correct. Yep. They had the master part. So Marshall Southern Miss looks like Marshall last year, and Marshall this year is still to be determined because you don't know what you're going to get from these guys. That they brought in a whole new coaching staff, got a brand new roster that comes over, and so you're going to find out real quick this week as you play a Missouri State team what head coach Tony Gibson has in store for the Marshall Thunder and her.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if we've got any more notes here. Defensive lineman Mitchell Toney and safety McGuire Neal led the way on defense, totaling 12 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 tackle for loss between the two of them. But USC threw all over them for plenty of success. Marshall should hopefully be able to spread the ball out here and have a little bit better time against the Bears. All right, the local team to me here in Durham, North Carolina, the NC Central Eagles, are traveling to Norfolk to take on ODU. Norfolk is not a new place or destination for them, however, because their conference mate, Norfolk State, is up there in that area as well. So really, this road trip isn't going to bother them. They're pretty used to it. But Central comes in just 1-1 on the year, having played in week 0. They defeated Southern 31-14, so a pretty good win and big win for them. But they fell at home, actually, surprisingly, last week, 10-27 to New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire is no joke of a football team, but having them travel down to North Carolina in the second week of the season, playing at home, you've already won your first game of the year. I would have expected Central to kind of continue their winning ways, right, BT? I don't know how much you know about Central, but they've been pretty good here in the FBS as of late. Or FCS, yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Central's been pretty good lately. I actually got the chance to – I watched their first game of the season on TV and got to see the athletes that they have. And the thing that you're looking at is you're taking your team on the road. This is a chance for you to show up for your conference. I believe they're in the MEAC conference.
Yep.
So it's a good chance for them to show up for their conference, go play a sunbelt team, and ODU, who is coming off a loss to Indiana. And they fared fairly well, 27-14. Yep. And so you got to look at your team as they come in and see what you're going to be able to do. What can you take advantage of? Old Dominion only had 96 passing yards last week. They ran it for 218. So that's something. They threw 3 interceptions. So that's something that Central could be looking to capitalize on. And so as Central makes that trip up to Norfolk, Old Dominion's got an opportunity to get back on the right side of the game, to see what you have in your team and your staff for the 25 season. As your coach comes in, I don't believe they had too much turnover on their roster as most of the other Sunbelt schools did. But see what Coach Ricky Rain has in store. Ricky Ron has in store up at ODU this year.
Yeah, the thing, again, this is the teams that we expect to win. All the teams on the right side here for the Sun Belt, they're all the home team, so there's another added feature to them winning and why they should win. But here's something more. Walker Harris is the quarterback for NC Central, has failed to pass for more than 200 yards in either game and only recorded 1 touchdown in each outing. So again, running back is the strong suit. When you don't have a great passer, you run the ball, right? Chris Mosley has gone for 182 and 106 in his first 2 games. So a guy who's gone over the century mark in both games. Surprisingly, though, only reaching the pay dirt 1 time with all those yardage in those 2 games. But we'll see. Mekhi Wall seems to be the go-to big threat. However, it's kind of weird because he leads the team with only 3 total catches, and he only has 106 total yards. So it's either like he catches the ball and he gets a good chunk of yardage, or he doesn't catch the ball at all. And there's not a whole lot of other receivers making multiple catches. So it's a very strange offense here that doesn't seem to be firing on all cylinders. So if ODU can still run the ball, control the clock, I expect them to take care of NC Central as, I would think most of their fan base thinks that they should. Georgia Southern. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. This is Coastal and Charleston Southern. There's too many Southern teams in our conference. I'm getting tripped up here. This is the Buccaneers versus the Chanticleers. The Buccaneers got crushed by Vandy 45-3 last week. The team threw for just a total of 88 yards and only rushed for 47. So if I had to pick a name that would stand out, it ain't the quarterback, it ain't the running back, I'll go with wide receiver Jamal Bishop, who grabbed 2 receptions for 36 yards. But listen to that stat. That's also really not all that impressive, right, PT?
Yeah.
It's just kind of the big play guy of the day, even though they didn't really have many of those. I don't know. It's kind of a get right game, right?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a get right game for Charleston Southern as they travel up the coastline in the Florence to play Conway, and travel to play Coastal in Conway, and I think this is from both sides. You probably going to learn that Charleston Southern knew they were probably a little bit outmatched versus what what Vanderbilt was, and so you kind of have to understand it and deal with it as you go in the game, and so it's some things that you look forward to. And I want to give a quick shout out to a young man that's on that Charleston Southern team. One of my former teammates' son, Braden Woolbright, plays down there at Charleston Southern. He's my teammate Perry Woolbright's oldest son who's down there playing. And Perry hit us up asking us to check him out this past weekend as he's come into Charleston Southern and beat out some returners and been able to beat out some guys as he came in. They actually had a tackle last week. So shout out to Braden playing down at Charleston Southern as they look to travel, as they get ready to play Coastal Carolina this weekend.
Absolutely. That's a pretty cool little tidbit there. So another name to watch out for if you guys are checking that one out on ESPN Plus Saturday evening. All right, we'll wrap it up with the teams that should win. Cajuns got to get back on track. They're playing McNeese. McNeese hammered Louisiana College 54-9. Quarterback Jake Strong went 329 and 3 touchdowns. Running back Marquez Davis had 97 total yards and a touchdown, and 3 receivers had over 60 yards. So they do, well, as a couple other teams have done, do a pretty good job of spreading that ball out so far, early part of the season. Excuse me. But yeah, once again, another get-right game for the Cajuns, right? They dropped that one at home. Here's another home game, in-state opponent, a team that you should beat, but a team that also has some heat, probably trying to come in and upset you and get some more coverage for their program going forward, right, BT?
Yeah, and I think this is obviously the Cajuns opened up their the new stadium last week. Didn't do what they were supposed to do in front of a home crowd. They're gonna get McNeese coming in to in there again. So you're gonna look to see what the Raging Cajuns can do against I think McNeese is FCS, I believe.
That's correct.
And so just to kind of see what they can do as they travel down to Lafayette. Can Walker Howard do better than what he did last week with 88 yards? Is the offensive line going to be able to protect them and give him some time to throw the ball? As last week he targeted Sheldon Sampson Jr. 12 times and only completed 4 passes. So see if Louisiana can do the right thing by knocking off McNeese State and getting the win Saturday night down in Raging Cajun territory.
Yeah, and if earlier today was any indication, we still don't even know Walker Howard's health. So that is still a question mark at this point of the week, which, again, I'm partial to seeing Lunch. First of all, it's one of the coolest nicknames or names in all of college football. So I want to see Lunch Winfield get his shot because I've been waiting for that kid to electrify the field. He's had a couple plays here and there over the years, like little small packages, but I'd like to see him take total control of this thing. And let's see what he can do. So we're going to round it out here. These are the rest of the games of the weekend. There still are big games for some of the people that are, the fans of these teams. However, from an outside perspective, we kind of expect it to probably go some type of way. So we have Troy matching up with number 8 Clemson. We know Clemson just lost 10-17 to LSU at home. This one's going to be at home yet again there in Death Valley or, not so deathly Valley now after the LSU loss, maybe. Cade Klubnik went 19 of 38 for 230 and no touchdowns, but 1 interception. Rushing attack gained just 31 yards. Adam Randall made the move from wide receiver to running back last year in the bowl game and seems to still be their number 1 option at the tailback position. He did find pay dirt, but he only totaled 16 rushing yards. So it's hard to see too much that you can compare directly with Troy because of the competition that Troy played last week and the competition Clemson played last week. But one thing I do want to mention, and BT, you remember this, the tandem wide receivers, Brent Wesco Jr. and TJ Moore, can be very dangerous. Versus App State last season, they combined for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. So,
yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I was just thinking, first game of the season last year, I believe Clemson and Georgia played, I believe. Yes. We called App State played Clemson the week after they got beat by Georgia, and all the fans were all over Dabo Swinney and everything he had going down at Clemson. I feel sorry for Troy this week because they're going to catch Clemson at their best. Dabo Swinney's not happy with the production that his team had. Cade Klubnik did not show up to be a top 5 draft pick that they thought that he was going to be. And why do you think of that the first game of the season? I don't know why people want to write about it. Get some people to write about and talk about. So, Troy's in a difficult spot coming up to South Carolina this weekend to play Clemson. It's going to be deafening. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder, and hopefully Troy can withstand it and make this game competitive. If not, hopefully they don't get done like App State did last year and get blown out in the first quarter.
Yeah, that would not be good. Clemson just 3 of 13 on third down. So if Troy can get anywhere close to that, that means they're going to be doing pretty well. But again, that's tough to see after what we saw. You just made reference to it. They came off of a disappointing loss last season. They're playing at home. They rebounded really, really well. So we'll see if that happens again this week. Memphis takes on Georgia State. This one was one that I really looked forward to before the season kicked off, thinking that maybe Georgia State could play Ole Miss pretty decently, lose by 10, lose by 14, something like that. And you think, all right, Memphis coming in, maybe not as powerful as they have been. Maybe they've got a shot here. But this is another Tiger team, right? So we've got the Clemson Tigers up there. We talked about the LSU Tigers. Now we're talking about the Memphis Tigers. It's just all Tigers over here tonight. But they took out Chattanooga 45-10 last week to start their season 1-0. Brendan Lewis, the starting quarterback, had a very solid outing, going 22 of 28 for 199 yards. Couldn't get just one more yard, BT. Come on, man. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also added 81 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. So, again, just like we talked about earlier, a true dual threat quarterback. He's not having success through the air. Guess what? Doesn't matter. He's going to run all over you. You might have spent some time with some quarterbacks that were like that too.
Right? Got a couple of them in mind. Georgia State, they're real close to going 0-2 to start their season, and things get in the train getting off the tracks down there in Atlanta. Memphis is going to be a tough out. They're going to come into Atlanta ready to play, looking to get a win and go 2-0 to start their season off with. And you got to think I think Memphis is Conference USA, so a Conference USA versus a sunbelt team. That's big in America. Okay, America.
Yep.
Okay, so American versus Conference versus sunbelt. No, that's big for like conference bragging rights. And Georgia State's got to play. The head coach down there hopefully has got things together. Ready for the Tigers to come in this week. As you got the Tigers versus the Panthers in Atlanta on Saturday night.
It's a cat fight. Del McGee better have his boys ready. I mean, he's been recruiting really, really well. That's where he was kind of notated to be so significant of an ad for a coaching aspect. We got to remember, it's just a few years in for him. So I hope the people in Atlanta are being a little patient as he tries to build this roster, because even when he's had some talent, it transfers out because they get offered more money somewhere else that can afford to pay him. So again, another, Sunbelt team that probably could be a little bit better if it was easier to hold on to some of these guys. But, of course, that's what we get, right? Let's see here. The Georgia Southern Eagles. So we found out through Gata Talk, they confirmed with us, Georgia Southern will not travel all the way across the country to go back out to California. They are staying there after the Fresno game and then going to USC, down to USC, I think, right? Is that how that works? Fresno is north a little bit?
I have no idea. The geography in California throws me all off. So
yeah, I know it's a huge state, but
yeah, never been there before.
Oh, okay. I lived there for a number of years, but I may have seen a USC game, but I was like 8 when we moved. So if I had seen it, I don't really remember. I did see some high school stuff. So I do remember some really talented high school players that I got to see. Anyway, back to the task at hand. FS1, kind of a random station for a sunbelt game to be on, actually. But Georgia Southern will take on the Trojans, but not of Troy. This one of Southern Cal, as we just mentioned. Jaden Maviava, I think I say that right, maybe close. Maybe the quarterback USC's been waiting on, right? They've had a couple chances and some tries. Well, they just put one in the NFL. He's placed for the Bears, Williams. So we'll see if he can kind of get to that significant level. 15 of 18 for 295, 2 touchdowns last week. King Miller rushed for 80 and 1 touchdown while averaging 20 yards per attempt. So, we're talking about the team in the Missouri State Bears, right? So we've already talked that that's the matchup that had happened. So, again, competition level does need to be taken into consideration here, but these are the stats to present because they are factual. Wide receiver Mekhi Lemon was easily the top target last week, grabbing 7 receptions for 90 yards total. Defensively, Braylon Shelby is a beast on the edge, totaling 2 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss versus the Bears. And in total, the Trojans held Missouri State to just 3 of 14 on third down attempts. So Georgia Southern cannot have another outing like they did against Fresno State, plain and simple.
No, they can't. They got to see if French can get going and finding him some targets. You can't wait. You can't get shut out in the second half like they did against Fresno State and getting outscored 29-0. So hopefully French and Brown and crew can get some things going. And then while they've been out there in California, they work on some fundamentals. They work on blocking, tackling, catching, so they can show up for Southern Cal because you don't want to go out there and just get a paycheck and get your head beat in, and then you got to come back east and get ready for your next week, and then start a conference play coming up soon. So hopefully Southern goes out there. I've never said I'm rooting for Southern, but I
can't do that.
Yeah, I can't do those things. But I want them to play well, show up for the name that's on the front of the jersey and not the name that's on the back, and also show up for the conference that you're representing as you go out here to play a Power 4 team in Southern Cal.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
What conference is Southern Cal in right now?
They are in the Big Ten, weirdly enough.
Okay.
Yeah, weird. Them and UCLA are in the Big Ten conference. Makes total sense, right?
It does. It does.
Gotta love it. If you have the money, you pay to play. Really, like I think that's pretty much.
That's why I never say don't pay these kids because they getting paid big money.
Oh yeah, yep. What did they say? I think we touched on it last week. Georgia's roster is estimated between like $30 and $40 million or something like that. That's insane. All right. The nightcap, I think, was it the latest game? I don't know. 7:45 Eastern, 6:45 Central. It is one of the latest games, if not the latest game on the calendar for Saturday. It's Sunbelt action. This one will be on the SEC Network. So if you've got that, be sure to tune in to see if ULM can spring another upset on Alabama. That's right. Nick Saban coached Alabama team was taken down by the Warhawks back about, like a decade ago maybe, before Alabama was the Alabama of new. But, hey, guess what? Alabama just got shellacked by FSU 31-17 this past week. And if you hear all the pundits talk, they didn't look like Alabama at all. Pushed around, shoved around, did not look like the dominant figure that Alabama football has been known to be. Ty Simpson completed about half his passes and had 2 touchdowns, but the running game couldn't get going. Wide receiver Jeremy Bernard did go for 146 on 8 receptions, so he's certainly one to look out for in the stretch game if Simpson can get him into the open field. But FSU ran all over them. Hopefully ULM can have some of that on their side. Braden McReynolds, as you spoke of earlier, if he can have some more success, I mean, I wouldn't put money on it, but I'll be pulling for ULM to spring the upset, BT.
Yeah, you got to Troy and ULM are in 2 tough positions as they're going up against some powerhouse teams that are coming off losses in week 1. And the one thing that they cannot do is afford to go 0-2. So Kalen DeBoers and staff, they're going to make sure that they get everything buttoned up to take on ULM as they come into town this weekend down in Tuscaloosa, and not leave any doubts. I don't think I don't think Alabama looked that bad against Florida State. You got to consider some of the conditions that they had to deal with, rain throughout the game, and you're breaking in a first year starting quarterback. Your starting running back's not in the game. Your starting running back didn't play. Can't remember his last name. He didn't play, so then you went with your backup. So those are some things you got to look at. And then obviously on the defensive side of the ball, they did get pushed around, but it is very hard to stop. I call it it's called the +1 run game when your quarterback can run the football. Mm-hmm. When you have a quarterback who's a dual threat can run the football, it gives them an extra blocker in the box. The defense doesn't readily account for, and Tommy made them pay dearly as he ran all over them and made some smart decisions down in Tallahassee last Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be tough sledding for these teams, and that's why they weren't on the must-watch games or the games of the week or on the you got to win it, because it's going to be tough to win these games right here. But we are pulling for the conference, as we always do. Is there any final words of wisdom or things you want to say here before we bid the good people good night?
There is a lot more football left to go. I listen to sports talk radio a good bit, and you hear fans calling for coaches' jobs after week one. Imagine if you went to your job and you didn't do a good job the first day. You think somebody wants to fire you? Come on now. There's a lot of football left. You can't worry about what teams did last season. You can't get caught up in all this preseason hype and the rankings. I actually think rankings shouldn't come out period until like week 6, because that gives you some non-conference play, gives you some conference play to look forward to. And so those are some of the things. Just be patient. We're just getting started. Week 1, there's, I think, 12 more weeks of regular season football left to go. Your team could come out starting hot and fall flat, or they could be flat starting out and finish hot. So take a lot of these things that you see and just look for improvements. And always know that most teams are getting ready and geared up for conference play that's probably going to start here in the next 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, I want to round that back into completely the sunbelt. So when App State moved up, right, they started off the year with like a 1-5 record or something like that, rattled off 6 straight wins. If they would have been able to be bowl eligible, apparently they would have got to a bowl. They applied for the waiver just as Georgia Southern did that same year. Neither were accepted. But again, that's a bad start, great finish. And then just last season with ULM, they started off, they did lose that game to Texas early in week 2, I believe it was. But other than that, I think they were 5-1 with wins over JMU and Troy, the back-to-back conference champions and the favorites to win the championship in last year's JMU squad. So that's great, right? But then they went on a 6-game losing streak to end the year. So there's the two sides of the coin for specific Sunbelt teams that happened just here within the last 7-8 years that I can think of off the top of my head. So, yeah, don't get too high, don't get too low on your team. Some of our teams are playing 2 really tough opponents to start the season. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you, BT. That just enjoy the football as it is. No one's out of your conference race yet. So that is still to come, and hopefully everyone can be excited for that. I really appreciate you jumping in last minute. Like I said to the people, we called an audible, and you did it.
TJ owes me.
Yeah, I heard. When next time he's in Charlotte, he owes you. So
I'm gonna make sure he pays up well and dearly.
There you go. Did you get to see him this past weekend in Charlotte, or were you too busy with work?
I saw him from the stands.
Okay.
I sent him a text message asking where you're sitting, and he told me, and I was able to spot him in the stands. I was able to spot him in the stands during like the third or fourth quarter, and we exchanged peace signs and virtual and distant hugs.
Nice. There you go. Chris Bolton, one more comment before we get out of here. Remember the ULM against Georgia Southern a few years ago for the title game. Yeah, FCS days. For people that don't know, people want to give ULM a hard time. They were an FCS power at one point in time. That's why they are now FBS. So don't forget that when you start talking down to ULM. They're here for a reason. They haven't been as competitive as they would have wanted to once they got up here, but there's a reason that they did move up at one point in time. So with that, we will bid you farewell. Check out Don't Sleep Energy and Phenom Elite, and we'll see you guys next time.